All right, folks, it is May 6th, 2025. And of course, a lot of things are happening in the world and around the world and all along those lines. And we'll be talking about those here on World Edition. German lawmakers to vote again on the next chancellor hours after Friedrich Merz first round loss. So Germany's Merz sinks election as chancellor in the second vote after the debacle is the way that some people are reporting on it and all in that space. And some folks are even asking, why did Friedrich Merz suffer a shock defeat in Bundestag? And what's next for Germany? And definitely, it looks like Israel has a plan to seize the Gaza Strip, and that is being met with alarm in some circles. So, Israel's plan to occupy and flatten all of Gaza, if no deal by Trump's trip, is what is being reported as well. So, Netanyahu is warning of intensive escalation from Israel in the Gaza campaign. And the Vatican is to deactivate the mobile phone signal ahead of the secret meeting to elect the new pope. So cardinals choosing the next pope have been offered a dossier on the candidates with a subtext. So definitely folks will be trying to figure out who will be the new pope, and the clock is ticking down toward a historic conclave. So that'll be taking place on tomorrow. So the world's eyes are turning to the Vatican City as a papal conclave to elect the new pope is set to begin. So we'll find out who they decide to bring in as the new pope and all along those lines. And Israel issues evacuation warning for Yemen airport after a Houthi strike on Tel Aviv. So Israel attacks Yemen's capital, Sana'a, and that's according to the Houthi-run TV. Israel bombs Yemeni port city after Houthi missiles struck near that Tel Aviv airport. So some 20 fighter jets took part in the Yemen strike, dropped 50 munitions on the Houthi targets, according to the IDF. And the UK and India have struck a trade deal amid U.S. led tariff tensions. So Britain and India clinched a landmark trade deal in the shadow of Trump's tariffs. So that's something that folks are talking about as well. And Ukrainian drone attack is close to close Moscow airport. So the Ukrainian drones attack Moscow, halting flights ahead of a major military parade. So Ukrainian drones attack forces restriction of flights near Moscow, according to what Russia is saying. So Russia says it stands by the 3-day ceasefire plan after the Ukrainian drone attack on Moscow. And the Post wins the Pulitzers for Trump rally shooting stories and editorial cartoons. So the New York Times has won 4 Pulitzer Prizes. Reuters won a Pulitzer for its fentanyl investigation. And speaking of fentanyl investigations, hope y'all got a chance to check out the radio show that I do on Monday afternoons, because I had a gentleman on that is actually a former DEA investigator and all along those lines. And we were definitely talking about fentanyl and the rise of fentanyl and how deadly a drug it is. So definitely that is something that you might want to go check out in past editions, because that took place yesterday afternoon at 2 o'clock. And the EU is set to have a 2025 deadline for severing energy contracts with Russia. So EU to propose an end 2027 halt to all Russian gas imports. EU plans to end its addiction to Russian gas, faces geopolitical risk by doing that, is what some folks are saying. And Peru imposes curfew after kidnap and murder of 13 mine workers. So Peru suspends gold mining in the north after the massacres that took place there. So gold mining has been suspended in Peru's north after those 13 miners were killed. And the Romanian prime minister resigns after far right wins first round of president vote. So centrist Nicolae Dan faces an uphill battle to beat Simeon in the Romanian presidential runoff. So if that's something that's going on, is we've got presidential elections in various countries and all along those lines. Prince Louis steals the show as royals mark VE Day, VE celebrations, and a duck in St. Peter's Square. So that's just some of what was going on as the British royal family watched the military parades marking the start of VE Day events in London. So it looks like there were some major celebrations going on in that space. And Pope Francis donated his Pope Mobile to serve as a mobile health unit for Gaza children. So the Pope Mobile will become a health clinic for Gaza children. That was apparently one of his final wishes, and all along those lines. And of course, people are still asking what caused that European power outage. I know that Nick was in the middle of that, and all along those lines, so we'll find out more about what's going on in that space, and if they are feeling safe that they won't have another major outage anytime soon. And Israel doesn't actually care about the fate of Druze in Syria, is an opinion piece being written in Haaretz. So we'll see what goes on in that space as Turkish warplanes face off with Israeli fighters over Syria. So definitely some folks, a spiritual leader, according to the Jerusalem Post, says the massacre of Druze in Syria is a warning sign for Israel. So we'll see what goes on in that space. And a top UN court dismisses Sudan's genocide case against the United Arab Emirates and everything like that. So definitely we'll see how that goes also. And definitely it looks like UN Humanitarian Office has rejected Israel's plan to shut down the current aid system in Gaza. So as aid embargo on the strip enters its third month, hunger is stalking Gazians again. And Iran's foreign minister urges restraint in India-Pakistan standoff. So Iran's top diplomat in Pakistan to mediate in the escalation with India over the Kashmir. So then that Kashmir attack. So Iran's foreign minister visited Pakistan to mediate India's tension after that deadly attack. So we'll see what goes on in that space. And a woman accused of killing 3 with a poisonous fungi hid the food in kids' meals. So Australia toxic mushroom trial is something that folks are paying attention to in that part of the world. So an Australian woman is on trial for murder by toxic mushrooms and all in that space. So I guess you got to be careful what you're eating these days and times and all along those lines, because there might be some people that are targeting you and all in that kind of way. So even in your own family. So you got to be careful what's going on in that sense and maybe some ways. And I'll see what Rick's got to say about that in a minute and everything along those lines. 20 years later, the real ID deadline is here. And some people are wondering why it took so long. And definitely, they're even asking whether other forms of transportation require passengers to have real ID after the May 7th deadline, which is tomorrow. So definitely, it looks like a lot of people are trying to figure out what's going on with the real ID and how that's impacting flights and all along those lines. So definitely, that is something that is very interesting. And a federal judge says the Democrats' North Carolina election win must stand. So a Trump-appointed judge blocked the GOP effort to change that particular election. So judge orders the election board to certify the Democrats' victory in that contested North Carolina race and all along those lines. So definitely that is something that people are paying attention to right here in the state that I am part of, North Carolina. And we'll see what folks have to say about a number of these stories as well, because definitely that is something that folks are paying attention to, and they're trying to figure out what's going on in that sense and along those lines. So we'll be definitely bringing in my esteemed friends and panelists and seeing what they've got to say about a number of these stories and a number of these international stories that are out there as well. And by the way, Trump's order to reopen Alcatraz, some people are saying, is a perfect metaphor for his second term. So Trump's idea to turn Alcatraz back into a prison is drawing criticism from tourists. So some tourists like to go there for the tourism aspect, but he is hoping to reopen it, and it's apparently it could be stymied by various roadblocks. And Trump's trade war with Canada has apparently backfired in America, according to what CNN is saying. So, and by the way, Donald Trump and Mark Carney are to meet at the White House. So we'll see how this goes as well, since at one time Trump was saying Canada should be the 51st state, and today he will be meeting its prime minister. So we'll see how this particular reaction goes and how this particular thing goes also. And as we were talking about yesterday, Trump's Hollywood tariff threat is already unraveling. Well, he made that threat, but now it's unraveling. John Voight says he presented Hollywood tariff plan to Trump. So apparently John Voight, who has been one of his consultants in Hollywood, might be the one that's trying to get credit for this idea. And Trump's movie tariffs could hit U.S. film studios where it hurts the most. So definitely a lot going on in that place. And DHS unleashes possible money saving measure for illegal aliens to self-deport. So there's this effort where they can self-deport. So U.S. offers migrant free airline tickets and $1,000 stipend if they self-deport. So he's offering money for folks to self-deport and all along those lines. And people are still talking about the closing speech by President von der Leyen at the Choose Europe for Science event. And as Trump targets researchers, Europe makes a pitch to attract scientists. So von der Leyen and Macron knocks Trump wars on universities as a gigantic miscalculation. And Europe unveils a $567 million push to attract researchers as French president decries the U.S. mistake over science policies. And last but not least, the Trump administration is asking the court to toss suit restricting access to abortion drugs. And so Trump to continue Biden's court defense of abortion drug mifepristone. So definitely that is something that is going on as well. So like I said, a lot in the news, but I've got Rick Rosner with me. I've also got Nick with me and everything like that. So I guess the first question I got for you and everything, since you're in the Hollywood area, is what is your talk on tariffs? We were talking about this yesterday, particularly for the movie.
So, all right, okay. So, I mean, Trump reveals again and again that he freaking doesn't understand anything. Freaking, all right, what is an American-made movie? You have a Marvel superhero movie that employs 10,000 people around the world in various CG shops in Korea, in Thailand, and a big $200 million movie is a world enterprise. So I don't know how they're going to determine what's an American movie or not. Then he's got this other thing, $1,000 to leave America, plus a plane ticket. Most of these people paid well more than that to coyotes to take them over the border, anywhere between $3,000 and $14,000 to get smuggled over the border. He's going to offer them $1,000. That's ridiculous. I mean, maybe some people will take it, but not the mass and numbers of people he wants. $5,000 to have a baby. That's like he wants to encourage people to have babies. The countries where this is a successful thing offer tens of thousands of dollars in incentives and social services to help families every year. $5,000 isn't shit. He's bad at business.
You were speaking about bad in business, and this is for both you and Nick. We'll see if anybody else joins us later and everything like that. But the Georgia governor, Brian Kemp, said he won't run against Ossoff for the U.S. Senate and everything like that. But one of our other favorite people, Marjorie Taylor Greene, said that she'd win Georgia governor or a Senate seat. So what is our thoughts around that? Because she reported that on News Nation that if she decided to run for one of those two seats, that she could win that particular seat.
I don't think she can win a statewide. Her district is super duper, Republican. So she's safe in that district. The first time she ran, she intimidated her Democratic opponent into not running at all. She ran unopposed. I don't know if last time she ran unopposed or not, but I don't think she can win if all the voters of a state have to show up to decide about her.
Yeah, that's interesting things. Hey, Nick, along the same lines, I don't know if you got some thoughts because you are now living in Spain, but the president of one of the European organizations, as well as the French president Macron, are knocking Trump's wars on universities, and they are actually putting some money out there to attract researchers to come to that area because Europe has unveiled a $567 million push to get researchers to leave the U.S. and to come to Europe. So what is your take on that? Are you expected to have a bunch of neighbors in Spain that are U.S. scientists?
Sure, let them go. I mean, the thing is, this subsidizing of elite universities has got to stop. $2.2 billion. And I was reading their complaint. They're crying that they're entitled to these funds. They're not entitled to any funds. So the thing is, Harvard especially is the worst. They have 53 billion, Mark, 53 billion in the bank. And the thing is, the amount of funding that's going to be pulled over 10 years is like 2.2 billion. And they're crying that we're entitled to it. But let me make matters worse about Harvard. How many students do not come from the United States in Harvard right now? Do you know it's pushed up to now 27% of the students that are at Harvard are not U.S. citizens. So it's, they have moved up from like 5% to 27% to getting close to 30%. So they don't represent the United States anymore. Now, if you're in the LGBTQIA or whatever community you want to talk about, how many of them are LGBTQIA, whatever? 35%, when the national statistics are around 4%. And the word on the street is you have to put on your application, I'm gay, trans, crazy, mixed up, and hence let me in. To give you how far left that institution has gone. So the thing is,
where do you get that statistic from? Because I don't know that there's 35% that are gay at that particular institution. I'm not saying that you're wrong,
but the thing is, it's non-representative of the U.S. population. The U.S.
but
population.
I'm just saying, where did you get that statistic from and everything?
Now I know Rick's going to do a check on it, but I checked
I'm
on
doing it right
today, and
now.
I was going,
Yeah, please check on that, because I need to figure out where these statistics are coming from.
Mark, it's
I did have before we get to the
35%.
statistics,
It is
I did have a
way
question
not
for
representative. It's 27% foreigners. This is not a representative institution. And you want to give them 2.2 billion? I wouldn't give them a bloody dime. Give it to the University of Miami, please. Okay.
well, that's just because that's your alma mater and everything.
Right.
But
So I
do
got
have a
some
question.
numbers. I got some numbers.
Hit some numbers.
Yeah,
Rick.
let's check the numbers from Rick.
All right. So I'm seeing two sets of stats. Nobody has 31%. Google AI gives me 27%.
27% of
Article from the Harvard Crimson says that 79.4% of Harvard students identify as straight, 7.2% bisexual, 5.1% gay or lesbian, 1.7% as some other sexual identity, 4.8% questioning their sexuality. So almost 80% identify as straight. And I know these numbers, my kid went to an Ivy League. She went to Columbia, and she was she was a stage manager for various school productions. And so, like, I mean, a ton of her friends are other than straight. But
yeah. I mean, but that's the industry. I'm not saying that that's the industry. I'm just saying that if you look to the demographics of the United States and you look to these quote elite Ivy League universities, it's disproportionately going the other way.
Well,
so
you
when
just said
Trump
4%,
says hey,
so
these
in
are
that
liberal
same,
organizations,
well,
what are you supposed to say? The stats show it that way. Right?
so, well, that's what the stats show, but I'd love to hear. If you can look up the stats for the
all right,
general population,
I
because
got the stats for
he
the
said it was
U.S. now
4%.
too. I got the stats for 9.3% of Americans identify as LGBTQ plus.
How many? What
as of 2024, up from 5.6 in 2020, 3.5 in 2012.
Right.
So it's been raising, and many
Yeah,
people are trying to figure out.
it's disproportionate. You have what they call a disproportionate allocation. Now, why do we have Harvard having 35% foreign students? Rick, can you go check that?
Yeah, I'm sure I'll run that now.
Because the thing is, when I looked at that, I'm going like, no, wait a minute. So I'm a U.S. citizen, and I'm funding Harvard by giving them these huge amounts.
26.8%.
Okay, 26 point. It's Princeton that has 35. I'm sorry. Okay.
All right. So, but the deal is, like, I like it in that we're 4% of the world's population. We're sucking the best and brightest out of the other 96% of the world. If we can get them, teach them, keep them, like Google. Like, I don't know where those guys are.
But okay, that is an argument for that, and I do understand it. But at the same time, I'm a U.S. citizen. My grandkids are applying to these universities, and we're paying taxes to these universities. We're giving grants to these universities. It's being occupied from somebody from Dubai or Yemen.
All right. So here's what I would do. If I could be Trump for a day, if I could take over his brain, and I'd still go after Harvard and the other Ivies and Stanford and some of the other elite schools.
Stanford's not really an Ivy.
But anyway,
it's an elite university.
Look, the problem is not who's getting in, it's how many people are getting in. Harvard, you said, with its $50 billion endowment, buy some more land, put up some more dorms and other buildings. I know Harvard always complains, well, we don't have room for more students. Harvard only lets in, 1,900 students a year? So, but the deal is, say, Harvard, you can have all the federal grants you want. You let in 3,000 students a year. All the Ivies, all the selective schools let in 50% more students every year. Then that's fairness, because there are 5 or 10 or 15 or 20 times more students qualified to go to each of these schools as get in. And so let more of them in. That's fairness.
But it's not letting them in. It's who are they letting in? Now let's look at
When you only
disproportionately.
when you
Rick,
only let in.
disproportionately, they do not come from the southern part of the United States of America. 42% come from the Northeast. So here we are living in the South, at least I grew up in the South, and I am funding Harvard University, the Northeastern 42%. This is like what
I mean, it's
call
always been that way.
states
So
all over again.
Harvard has tried various things over the past
It's
100
it's
a
disproportionate.
lot of those things have been bad. Like in the 1920s, they were like, we were Jew heavy. You got to let in fewer Jews. Then there were Asian issues and stuff. But okay, so if you want to have quotas, if you want to say, if you're Trump and you want to make just a half bad statement instead of a totally bad statement, then say, look, we're going to take that. Say we'll have regional quotas. We'll say, we've got 5 sections of the United States, and we want at least 10% of Harvard's admits from each of those 5 sections. Fine. But like let more freaking students in, build more buildings. My school, University of Colorado, a good, decent.
I like Colorado. I live there.
Like that place has gone from 15,000 students when I was growing up, maybe 12, to now it's like 30,000 plus. They're every time I go back to Boulder, there's another 5 gigantic freaking buildings. Just make these freaking bigger.
They're constantly growing.
Yeah, but the thing is, the South is disproportionately not represented in major elite colleges around the United States. And I know years ago,
if you want to talk colleges, the South has its own freaking sports, college complex. I mean,
sports is playing a major role as well, because there's even talk that the ACC may no longer be around because of the power of the SEC, and that they may dissolve, even though it's been a power conference for a number of years and all along those lines. But getting off the sports for a minute, I do have a question for Sasha and everything, because for the first time, Mr. Carney is going to meet Mr. Trump. As far as I know, this is their first time meeting, but maybe they've met in the past and everything. But if you were Mr. Carney, what would you tell Trump, and what do you expect from this meeting?
It's funny. I can tell you, Mr. Trump, watch your health and try to survive. And what do you need from me? How can I help you?
That makes sense. That's a good answer and everything along those lines. So that would be a good thing. But is there any danger that Mr. Trump could both Trump and Putin are not exactly young people and everything. And wish Shaquille was here, because we got this case in Australia with this woman that apparently was killing folks with these mushrooms and everything along those lines. So maybe this is a new thing that's going to happen as well. So has anybody been following that trial? And what do you expect, Nick, as a lawyer from that trial? Because apparently that's the big court news coming out of Australia.
Yeah, probably a guilty verdict. But it will be interesting to see the Trump meeting with the Canadian Prime Minister, because as we well know, they did steal the Hollywood movie industry. When I found out that Reacher was completely filmed in Toronto, in Sasha's neck of the woods, not in the United States of America, I was appalled. I mean, if you look at it, in Vancouver, they steal a lot of the movie industry. So when he slapped tariffs on them, rightfully so, but it actually affects the United Kingdom and Canada more than other places, because what they do is they basically have stolen the movie industry away from Hollywood.
Wait a second. Stolen is a kind of a word.
You're going to defend Canada. Come on, Sasha.
Absolutely out of context. Because the choice of location is prerogative of the producers and directors of movies. It's nothing to do with Canada or UK or just any other country. They're holding all the cards. They make executive decision where certain movie will be filmed, produced, edited, and so on. So stop talking about Canada or UK.
Not so fast. You guys are giving them incentive, tax credits, and cheap labor. Come on. You're playing the same game in Canada.
This is Los Angeles' fault. Hold on.
Now here's a tariff.
You got to blame Now, like I deflect a lot of stuff. I mean, California is a great place to live. The population's going back up. Texas used to say, and Republicans say, people are leaving. No, they're coming back. But the deal is, California and Los Angeles have not offered enough tax credits to film in the city. Production in Los Angeles since the strike is down 40%. Tons of people are out of work. It fucking sucks. They need to offer credits. Albuquerque hit it big with Breaking Bad. There was no reason they didn't love Albuquerque. They loved the tax credits they got for setting it in Albuquerque. Now, Albuquerque happens to be a meth-filled hell city, so it was appropriate. But it wasn't that wasn't the reason. It was the tax credits. Now Albuquerque has a huge movie studio there. All the Georgia's done it, North Carolina. You gotta the money, production money, will go where it's cheapest to make it.
So
and that's the problem. America can't compete against
Canada and UK. Take Albuquerque. They are great. They're successfully competing with Canada and UK. And that's the way to go. Albuquerque is stealing from Hollywood. Perhaps
I'll tell you this.
A Canadian dollar is worth 71 cents American.
Yeah.
If you can stretch your production dollars by moving to Vancouver.
So the argument could be that Canada artificially keeps low dollar to attract American movie producers. Ha ha ha.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They're gaming the system. And by the way, they're gaming the system here in Spain, whether you guys know it or not. Netflix built a 22,000 square foot filming studio in Madrid, so they can produce more stuff with using cheap Spanish labor and then import it to the United States.
You know, it looks good. It used to sound like crap. Now, with AI dubbing technology, you can watch a Spanish production. You can watch a production in any language, and it's not annoying. It sounds pretty natural. And what's annoying is if they've hired cheap screenwriters who give the people stupid crap to say. You still need good writers and good plots.
Well, speaking of good writers and good plots and everything, hey, Nick, I got a question for you. When are we going up for a Pulitzer and all along those lines, since we are a worldwide media outlet? That's what you and Kim keep saying and everything. So I'm just wondering when you're going to put in the application, since apparently the Post, I believe that's the New York Post, won for their Trump rally shooting story in their editorial cartoons, and the New York Times won some, and the Reuters won some, as I said, for their fentanyl investigation. And they are apparently, because according to the DEA agent, fentanyl is a major problem in the United States and everything like that. So definitely, I was just wondering, when are we going to get out there and get our awards in the Pulitzers?
Well, we already have a Pulitzer award-winning person, David K. Johnson. He hasn't been on a while because he's basically retired. But the thing is, he won a Pulitzer Prize years ago for investigative journalism, which frankly, we don't do that. Our idea of investigative journalism, we asked Rick to go to the internet and go to AI and figure out what's going on, what the real facts are, which frankly today is hard to do, Mark. I mean, you know, I pull the same. That's the reason I don't mind fact checking what I say, because I pull the stuff off the internet, and sometimes I don't know if it's real Memorex or somebody just makes something up. You know, it's kind of difficult to fact check everything.
It's always been difficult. Facts are slippery. Like, not all facts, but like I started off as a fact checker. They had to throw out an episode of a show that I worked on because I screwed up the fact checking. I got the name of the Incredible Hulk wrong because I'd forgotten that he had two different first names, David Banner on the 1980s TV show, because they thought Bruce was a femi name, and then Bruce Banner in the comic books and in the movies.
Coming back to David K. Johnson, investigative journalism, you know who was a main subject of his investigations for years, if not dozens of years? It was Donald J. Trump, our greatest president.
Yeah. No, he actually came to Campbell University Law School where we interviewed him. And just as he left, this is when Trump was running for the first time, he goes, you know, I think Donald Trump is going to win this election. This is when all the Democrats crying, Hillary, Hillary, Hillary's going to win, Hillary. And no, didn't happen. And he was right. Donald Trump did win the election. And on this network, as you well know, I predicted over 2 years ago he was going to win it again. And boy, did it got flack from Jacoby. Jacoby's not here to defend himself. Oh, Kamala this, Kamala that. I said, you guys aren't watching what's going on out there. I said, Trump is going to win again. And so I already had punched my ticket to Europe. Ta-da. So I don't have to listen to all this garbage except on TV. But the thing is, I did it because it's in the stars that the guy was going to win the election, and he did, and he was going to screw the country up, which is what he's doing. He's doing a great job on it, so we should applaud him for that. Spain is very stable. European Union, for the most part, is very stable, except our electricity goes out every now and then.
Yeah, what's up with that electricity going out? What's up with that?
I've been over in Europe and England for the past couple of weeks because our kid got married there, and yeah, it's freaking nice over there. Except I don't know how housing is in Spain, but in London, the dwellings are all like they're all Victorian row houses that were put up for working people 150, 100, I don't know, years ago. They're all these houses are 12 feet wide. It's there's no space to live.
That's correct. You're going to have to downsize when you're over here because there is no upsizing. It's just the places are really small. That's
our bedroom, the part of our bedroom back at home that doesn't have anything in it, that we just lie down on the floor, get dressed in, is big enough to hold our entire bedroom that we were staying in back in England. We were staying in a B&B that was built 400 years ago. But anyway, all these countries, Spain, England, the EU, the rest of the world will benefit from Trump's crap policies because smart people are going to head to Europe and to China, or stay in China, or return to China.
Well, speaking of Europe and China and everything like that, I do have another question for Sasha, since he knows this area much better than I do. And I know we've got the Russia-Ukraine China show coming up at 11 o'clock this morning and everything. But the EU apparently is getting ready to wean themselves of Russian gas. And I guess some people are saying that is a geopolitical risk. But I just wanted your take on this, because they're saying that by 2027, which is only 2 years from now, that they will be severing their energy contracts with Russia. So as one that has been following Europe and following Russia, what is your take on this, and will they be able to succeed in pulling this off?
I'm trying to be more cautious these days about the prospects of Russia because it's falling apart. And in its place, there could be probably a kind of a preliminary, some kind of a government headed maybe by maybe a coalition of 2-3 forces, and then there will be probably disintegration of Russia into 7, 8, maybe 9 different countries. That they probably will be tied up as some kind of union of independent countries or so on. But from that point on, they will no longer be a threat to Europe or to the world at all. So I think that's what we are looking. If Trump will choose to press Russia through new sanctions, and especially the Lindsey Graham proposal to tax 500% of countries which are buying Russian resources like oil and gas, and provide more ammunition to Ukrainians, I think the Russians' days are numbered. Now Putin is trying, through all intermediaries, arrange another meeting with Trump. Not another meeting, they haven't met since Trump became 47th president, but maybe with his team or some other kind, because he blew it The idiot blew it. Incredible opportunities. Trump offered him, look, we're going to be friends. We're going to be developing Arctic and Gazprom sales to Europe and this and that and just name it. And okay, the Crimea is yours and so on. And this idiot, instead of jumping at it and become accepted to G8 now and becoming again the Putin that was a few years ago before this war, he blew it. And now it will be very difficult to come back to negotiating table when it's all over and done. We'll see.
But you don't want to send money to bad guys. In the 1930s, my grandpa was famous for having said that we were selling a ton of scrap metal to Japan. And my grandpa, I guess, would go around saying all that scrap metal is going to come back at us in the form of destroyers who will be blowing up our, my grandpa said they're getting ready to go to war. They're buying stuff from us. We're giving them resources. And when you buy Russian oil, you're giving money to a bad guy. So if we can cut that off, then we can maybe hasten the demise that Sasha's talking about.
That's very possible. And just really quickly, Rick, along those same lines, I know that you fall, and I guess I do as well, in the liberal to moderate camp and all along those lines. But it seems like in Europe, and you just came from Europe because of your daughter's wedding and everything, that the right is winning big elections, whether it's in Romania, whether it's in Germany. And
the last year, 2024, was a terrible year for liberals. The right-leaning governments won like 82% of all the elections in the world. This year, Trump's screwing that up, like Canada. Australia just had big elections where the more liberal parties won because Trump is the world's bad example.
But is Europe going against that? But is Europe going against that? Because Romania just elected, I think, a right-leaning government, and I think
all right, but it's Romania. All right, like I don't know what its whole history has been like. I'm sure ping-ponging around under like authoritarian dictators for the past 100 years. But I got to say this about England. England, at least the parts I was in, well, we were in some very white parts, but we were also in some very melting pot kind of parts where whitey was for sure in the minority. Nobody cared. Nobody freaking cared. You go into like everybody's just going about their business. It's like, we've got these right-leaning governments, or we've got America's government that like wants more white babies. Well, freaking white people are less than 20% of the world's population. Like if you're worried about white people losing, demographically, they've already lost, and it's not that big a deal. You go into shops in England and you're waited on by people in various headgear, not burqas, but I don't know what you call them, but like nobody cares. They're fine. They're not mean to you. You're not mean to them. Everybody just wants to do business and get along.
Yeah. You got to get used to good Chinese food, good Indian food, good Pakistani food. And they had a map of that part of the world. If you just take China, India, Japan, and Asia, the population there exceeds the rest of the world combined. I mean, and so the thing is, they just have so many people. It's just not funny.
Well, speaking of so many people, I did want to get to Latin America. So, we are World Edition, as Sharif pointed out. So I try to get to different parts of the world and everything. So what is your take on what's going on with the gold of Peru? Because apparently they are going to suspend it because of this tragedy that took place with the killing of 13 security guards up there that were working for the mine. So that sounds like that's a heavy situation for a small country to take and everything like that, because I'm thinking that that's a major part of their industry and everything. But if anybody knows wrong that I'm incorrect in that, let me know. But that seems like that would be a major economic blow if you're going to suspend your entire gold mining and everything like that. But what's your take on that, Nick? Because apparently that's
Latin America. I mean, they're the nicest people in the world, and they're the most mismanaged group of people in the world. And, you can start with Venezuela. Venezuela should be one of the wealthiest countries in the world, but they have all these woke ideas that, hey, we're going to nationalize our entire oil and gas industry. And all the people that know how to work them They quit. They left. And so what happened? The oil's in the ground and they have no money. But you know what they do? They double down. Typical leftists. They double down. They do that. Johnny on my email list, he does it all the time. Johnny, if you're listening, you have bad positions and you double down on the position. I wish you were a backgammon player.
Well, speaking of doubling down and everything like that, and speaking of doubling down,
people do that all the time. They get a bad position, and in chess you can't throw the doubling cube down.
Well, I want to get betting. I want to get one of Rick's favorite topics, which is betting.
And that's Venezuela. But you can go through the entire part of Latin America. Argentina, same thing. And finally, they elected a conservative guy who decided to stop this nonsense and stop inflation that was like 120%.
Yeah, and
they brought it back down. So the real problem with Latin America, and that's the reason I don't move there besides the weather, is that it's the nicest group of people you'll see and the most mismanaged group.
You gotta follow Que Pasa Mujer, because they will tell you that they have some of the, I think it's 3.7 trillion, I think it is. With some of go follow Que Pasa Mujer, but they contributed a lot to the economy of the United States, is what Viviana, who hosts our show Que Pasa Mujer, talks about. So they are a major force. I think it's 3.7 billion, or maybe it's trillion. But
whether it's oil or gold or gems, digging stuff out of the ground is a vicious business with mean ass people like Sasha. You've been around the mining industry. You know, you have to watch your ass all the time, because like the people doing it are tough. They don't care about the rules necessarily, and you also have to watch out for shenanigans. And like, you know, if you look at mining conditions throughout the world, it's bad conditions. And like, at least the diamond industry now is being disrupted because we can make diamonds that are just as good in the lab.
Oil and gas is the same thing. These
and getting
that's a horrible industry. They want to get paid for that, Rick. They don't want to get paid woke wages to go out in some rig, leave their families behind, and risk their lives every day. And then then the government takes it all away in taxes, and they do all that. So they just frankly won't do it. So the oil's in the ground.
And by the way,
broke. So there's woke and broke.
Hold on a second. By the way, I want to come back to your Latino. This is what Viviana talks about. It is 3.7 trillion, and it's the U.S. Latino GDP. So it represents the total economic output of the Latino population in the United States, and it's been reported to be the 5th largest economy in the world, surpassing countries like India, the United Kingdom, and France. So that's what she hypes on the show, because they do that amount of money in terms of GDP. So it's 3.7 trillion. So I was right.
Yeah. So if you're Trump with an anti-Brown agenda, you're just shooting yourself in the balls.
Totally, you're shooting yourself in the ball. But I did have a question. Speaking of that,
I wanted to make sure that you understand the difference between gold and diamond industry and oil, gas, etc. The thing is that in diamonds and gold, there are a lot of artisan local miners who are mining or stealing, you can call it either way, for themselves, and then sell it on secondary market or so on. That doesn't exist in oil and gas. Now, significance of that is that even if you have a territory to develop, say, diamonds, and there are artisan diamonds that miners that develop and selling the diamonds for last 50, 100 years or so, it's extremely difficult to get rid of them. You can have all kind of licenses, but when you have to really start working there, you have to either buy them out, give them preferential treatment and better prices for whatever they are willing to sell, and or be ready to move on with your private army to evict them. So this is not a very pleasant situation. Now, that doesn't exist in oil and gas business. Yeah. Once you move in, you're okay.
Yeah, once you win, you're okay. Hey, both you and Sasha and Rick, and I guess you too, Nick, but I don't know because you are a Mormon. and everything like that. But I know that the two of you are involved to some degree in gambling and everything like that. But there's a form of gambling that's going on that I was wondering if y'all would dare to do this, because I don't think that I might have some issues with it. And I don't even consider myself the most religious person and everything. But apparently there's and this came from the Los Angeles Times, Rick. There's a papal tracker, so they're betting money on who the next pope is going to be and everything like that. So, would you take this bet? And if so,
I talk about gambling, but I don't
betting money on who the next pope.
I don't like gambling. I only like sure things, and so I don't gamble much. And betting on the Pope is like the least sure thing in the world. We don't know who these people are. We're not Pope trackers. Like, to be a good gambler, I know a professional gambler who during football season spends 60 hours a week researching. You have to know more than the bookies, and the bookies do their research. So why bet on something where, unless you're a compulsive gambler who needs to gamble on, then why are you betting on the Pope?
Well, what's your take, Sasha? Like I said, I know that you've been involved in some stuff. Would you take a bet on who the next Pope is going to be? Because apparently there's literally a poll. I'm looking at one of the statistics, and they've got different names on here, and it looks like they've got different folks that they are betting on to be the Pope. So they've got this whole thing.
I've looked at all the list of all these people for nomination for Pope, and I didn't find even one Jewish name. So that is kind of an attractive proposition. I cannot make a bet if there is not even one Jewish name is involved. Now, on the betting thing, I've done extremely well. Yesterday I won my bet on Toronto Maple Leafs, but before that, I've got a bet on Winnipeg, and they were losing 3-1 with probably less than 10 minutes left in third period. And so I put a bet, another bet. I had a bet on Winnipeg, and I put another bet, Winnipeg +1. So that means that they had to score a goal. If they don't, or the St. Louis will score, then I will lose. Now the attractive odds 2.1. So I put $100 on that. And right after that, they scored. So now I had a good prospects to win this bet. So I was now prepared to lose my main bet. But even that didn't happen because they scored 1.6 seconds before the end of the game, which is unheard of. Seventh game in NHL playoff, never happened before. And then went on to win overtime the match. So that was really fantastic.
If there's one Pope guy I might bet on, just to because of his name, there's Cardinal Pier Battista Pizzaballa. Cardinal Pizzaballa. How can a guy whose name is Pizzaball not become Pope?
Well,
the delivery service as well.
Well, you're gonna love this because I was watching Doc Rivers on some social media outlet yesterday, and he was talking about one of his assistant coaches, and the assistant coach, I think it was might have been under Al McGuire, the famous coach at Marquette, and all along those lines. There might have been one of his pro teams, but the assistant coach name. Are you ready for this, Rick? The assistant coach's name was Dick Harder. That was literally his name and everything. So that was
there was a famous car racer named Dick Trickle. Sometimes life gives you good stuff like that.
Gives you good stuff like that. I did have a question for you, Nick, because we're always trying to come up with original ideas along those lines for the notion of how to raise funds for Pod TV. And I'm thinking that last weekend was the Kentucky Derby. Why doesn't the Pod TV get some horses and create a horse racing campaign and everything like that? So I'm thinking we need to sponsor a horse.
Oh, I don't think we have expertise in the area of horses, but there were Jewish popes before. Besides Jesus and Peter, there was actually a Jewish pope called Andreas in 1906. So Sasha is disturbed, and rightfully so, that there's no Jewish pope that's being considered in this particular.
Well, speaking of Sasha being disturbed and everything, there is some other news coming from Canada, because I know that there's been talk of secession and people leaving the United States, like Texas and even California and other folks. But apparently, there was a vote on Canada about leaving Canada from Alberta. So, what is your thoughts on this? Because the Alberta Premier is proposing a referendum on a separation from Canada. So, one of your major provinces, that namely Alberta, is like, well, we're ready to leave. We're out of this. We're out of here.
Wow, that would be pretty big. Maybe they'll join the United States as the 51st state. So we have something to go on. We might actually get not all of Canada, but part of Canada as the 51st state, Alberta province, as they leave Canada.
They are voting on separation from Canada, possibly next year.
Yeah, and then we can claim all that territory, and then Greenland is next.
What's Alberta's beef?
They don't like the Canadians. Plus, they're pretty conservative there. You know, Canada and Alberta and Saskatchewan.
Well, Sasha's the expert on Canada. Why is Alberta upset at Canada?
So,
It's so fine, except when you are tuning onto economics, and you have to take national deaths of Canada, and put per capita on Alberta and Saskatchewan people. They will go broke in no time. It's happened already a few times, at least two on my memory, with Quebec. Quebec had a vote to get independent. They got almost 50%. They just got 49.7 or something. And so they remain in Canada, and in the next few years they've got this referendum going on again. And that time the economists turned in, and they calculated that Quebec will survive for about 2 months once they have a third of population of Canada. So a third of the Canadian debt will go right directly on them, and they will collapse in 2 months. So they ask them, so when would you like to hold the next referendum? They say, let us think about it. And they never had any referendum again. So now Alberta and Saskatchewan come along. Wonderful. Be my guest.
oh, okay. Well, there's a good chance then that Trump will be right once again, that the 51st state will be Canada, but it's going to be the provinces of Alberta.
Well, wait a minute. Hold a second. Apparently, they want separation because the Liberals won the election. So maybe this notion of Trump winning could be the reason that they're leaving, because it says that that's what's happening, is that apparently they are a more conservative side of Canada.
So they're more conservative in Alberta province.
Let's take Alberta. For the past 4 seasons, the Edmonton Oilers, Edmonton, Alberta Oilers, have knocked out the LA Kings in the first round of the playoffs. So let's frickin' take Alberta, make the Oilers an American team.
That's
let's make Oilers great again.
Yeah, we're the 51st state will be part of Canada, but the rest of Canada, they probably won't.
The rest of Canada will not be. So
we'll take Alberta province.
We make it
We've got
Alberta.
plenty of oil there. I mean, it's a great province to take. So,
but speaking of things to take, and we only got a few more minutes to go, and then we got to get to the Ukraine show and all along those lines. But apparently, India is trying to hold an auction of the Piparava gems found with the Buddha's remains. So apparently, they're trying to stop the sales of jewels linked to Buddha's remains, and apparently they're stepped in to stop Sotheby's, which is a major auction house, from auctioning off these sacred Buddhist relics. So one of the things is, and apparently there's controversy over this, can you actually auction off these things, and can you stop an auction house from auctioning if they've got them?
I mean, I think there are people who passed laws like eBay you're no longer allowed to sell human remains on eBay. 10 years ago, there was a guy at work who bought weird stuff, and he was seriously considering bidding on the stuffed remains of a former clown. You could buy a taxidermied clown. Can't do that on eBay anymore.
So, Kim, I see you've joined us as well. What is your take on us getting Canada and some of the other things that we've been talking about on this particular morning and everything? But apparently we're trying to get Canada and Alberta.
Well, I think Alberta is angry and they're not thinking clear. And I think before you make any decision like that, you should consider all the consequences to those direct actions. What will it gain you today, tomorrow, and in the future. Look at all the consequences. Don't knee jerk like our president does, because all you're going to do is continue knee jerking and have regrets. I don't think they're looking at the ripple effect. I think they're looking at their current anger, their current situation. They're not happy with the way things went. Things didn't go all of their way, but there are other people that live there that are happy with the decision. Not everyone is angry. I don't think 100% of the people are angry, but what I would say is stay fast what your prime minister wants, stay fast the course, and stay free. Don't change just because you're angry right now. Take a deep breath, heal a little bit from the decision, but sit there and write down the 10 good things, 10 bad things of going to America, and then 10 good things and 10 bad things. And then go to your prime minister and say, this is what we really want. Don't use it as a bribing tool, but use it as a means to say, let's negotiate because we're not happy.
Well, the thing is, if you look at it, the choice is simple. You can join the richest, most powerful country in the world, the United States, or you can stay with Canada, which is really...
It's not the richest. China and Japan are. They own our debt. Don't join us for that. Don't go for the money. Stay for the moral.
Country in the world, or you can stay with that second-rate country called Canada that doesn't know where it is.
Nick, tell me, do you imply that if Canada would agree to become 51st state, so that means that Canada will take a huge part of $37 trillion of U.S. debt as well?
Want you for your
is that
money.
what Canada is about?
We have plenty of debt to share.
They
with
want
your
you
country.
for money. They want you.
What about
to be
Medicare? What about social insurance? Do you want
Right,
Canada to absorb all that debt?
We're the richest country in the world.
Right.
What more do you
Our
want?
health care.
You're not, Nick, by far. You are the most.
Our health care.
The richest country in the world. You have an opportunity to join.
You are the most obnoxious beggar in the world. That's what you are.
Our GDP our GDP is the
fall
biggest
apart
in the world.
very quickly. Okay.
Your GDP is down.
The richest
Let me
country
explain
in the
something
world.
to
And I
you.
just
We are
said
not the
our
richest.
military is the strongest in the world. So we're number one in military, number one in GDP.
Against,
We're going to
you're
have
number
Canada.
one military against your own damn people. Wake
Yeah,
up, Nick. They're
Right,
using
so there is a military topic. Hegseth, Pete Hegseth, Secretary of Defense, wants to cut 20% of the highest ranking generals in the military. So I don't know what's up with that. I mean, it's
I do, but I want to just also mention, don't forget Matt Gaetz. They're going to make him head of DOJ. I mean, we didn't even want him the first time because of his sexual offenses and the accusations of him working with a sex trafficking ring. You know, they brought the Tate brothers back. I think it's just all bad. But why put a man that you wouldn't put in a position previously because of all of these bad things and now make him head of DOJ? I mean,
wait a sec. Here's something a little bit more about Pete Hegseth. The order to temporarily suspend the shipment of U.S. military aid to Ukraine came from the Office of Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, and the White House was unaware of the decision.
Right.
And for a week. And everybody was asking him, who gave the order to stop shipments? Who? How? And international companies started to ask because there was Transportation Command Company and so on to halt the flights. So finally, investigation shows that nobody gave the orders. It was Pete Hegseth on the assumption that this would please Donald Trump. He issued the order of his own. It was
I'm going to make a point real quick about taking over Alberta. Maybe we should let it happen so that the rest of the world can see an example of what America will do to a country as they acquire it, because it will become nothing more than a slave to Trump and what his agenda is, because he wants you guys for your mineral rights. He wants you for your mining, and you will lose all the health care that you get that is free. You will lose all the things that you are accustomed to and used to. But you know what? Hey, why don't you come on over to the evil side and be the example of what happens? But we are the only country where we are now using our military against our own people. Think about
And
that.
with that, we're going to have to go because we're at the hour and Russia, China is starting. Bye-bye.
Bye.